What if the thing standing between you and scaling your business isn't about finding the perfect strategy? What if it's actually your personality? All right, so I'm being a little bit dramatic here. It's not like you need a personality transplant, but something that I see a lot when I'm working with business owners who are working and trying to scale their business, that's like their goal, is the strategies are usually fine. They usually know what it is they're doing, and the offers are generally solid. Usually we need to fix a little bit of like front end packaging or messaging. But what's really getting in the way of them executing those strategies, assuming that they have, right, a sound business model, of course, is the way that they are relating to their business. So, what this shows up as is you maybe chasing every new idea that crosses your feed, or maybe you are deriving your mood from your metrics. If it is a really bad month or a bad week, right, you're feeling that really personally. Or maybe you're waiting for proof before you commit to the strategy or commit to the process. And the tricky thing with that is unless you stick with a strategy long enough, it's going to, you're never going to get to that result part of the strategy or the process. And I get it because I was doing all of those things too. And what actually changed for me that let me finally start scaling without a ton of drama or hustle, because I've scaled in the past. I had scaled in the past from hustling and working a ton of hours. But what happened that allowed me to start scaling without all of that drama, all of that hustle, happened internally, right? In fact, I didn't even realize that I'd made these three internal personality shifts until I looked back in hindsight and really connected the dots, as these things often happen. And so if you want to scale in a way that actually protects your life, protects your lifestyle, protects your personal goals, instead of consuming it, this episode is going to show you the three biggest personality shifts that you need to embrace. I want to be really clear about something. When I say that scaling requires a personality shift, I'm not talking about the Alex Hormozy school of thought that says every hour that you have, you should spend working and never take a day off and sacrifice everything now for results later. That approach might work for some people, but is it sustainable for the person with caregiving responsibilities, a health condition, or a life that they actually want to live now? For most people I work with, the answer is no. So before we go any further, though, it's worth asking yourself a really important question. Why are you actually running your business? Is it for the life that it's going to allow you to live, or is it to build a giant empire no matter what the cost? Because those are very two different goals and they require two very different approaches. The kind of scaling that I'm talking about here is lifestyle first scaling. I don't think making money in your business and having a great life are mutually exclusive. Building a business that grows within the container of your real life, not at the expense of it, is lifestyle first scaling. And what I found both in my own business and working with clients is that this kind of scaling requires you to become a specific type of person, not a harder working person, nor a more motivated person, but a more discerning, more grounded, and more devoted person. Those are the three shifts that we're talking about today. Shift one is discernment. So learning to choose one thing and actually stick with it long enough for it to work. I'm talking strategy here. Shift number two is boring. So breaking up with the idea that your business should be a constant source of excitement or emotional highs. And shift number three is devoted. So replacing the need for results as proof with a deep commitment to the process itself. For a long time, I was a total strategy chaser, and honestly, it wasn't even always about the results either. I would let my curiosity get the better of me. I was more interested in seeing what would happen with a new idea than I was in choosing the best strategy for my actual goals. Every time something new would cross my Instagram feed, a new funnel hack, a new content format, a new launch strategy, I would think I should drop everything that I'm currently doing and do this instead. And so I would drop whatever I was doing and start building something new. Discernment is the antidote to that. It isn't about being close-minded or resistant to new ideas. It's about having a clear filter so that when a potentially promising new idea or new strategy crosses your path, you can evaluate it quickly and objectively instead of just reacting to it and like taking it on. And if you recognize yourself in what I just described, if you're someone who also struggles with chasing the next shiny strategy before the last one has had a chance to work, here's a little mental model tool that I use called the Strategy Decision Matrix that'll help. I know it's helped me. So when you're sitting on a list of potential strategy ideas and trying to figure out which one you should move forward with, you score each one across 4 qualifications from 1 to 10. The first qualification is ROI potential. So realistically, what kind of return could this generate for the time and energy it requires? Second is ease of implementation. How complex is this to actually build and run given your current capacity and team? 3 is whether it complements existing strategy. So, does this fit naturally into what you're already doing, or does it require you to rebuild everything else around it? And the 4th thing is personal buy in. So, do you actually want to do this? Not is it exciting, not is it trending. Do you genuinely want to implement this in your business right now? Then you tally the scores, you rank the ideas based on what has the highest score, and then the rule is simple. You choose your top scoring idea and you focus there first. But here's the rule that matters even more than that matrix itself. And it's something that I set for myself a few years ago, and it's genuinely changed how I operate. So for me, this is my rule of 1. You are only ever implementing one new strategy at a time. You can be maintaining multiple things. You can be running your content, serving your clients, nurturing your list. That's maintaining, right? But introducing something completely new, a new strategy, you want to go one at a time. Everything else goes into a parking lot, a running list of ideas that you're not ready to act on yet, but you're not willing to lose sight of either. Your brain gets to relax because the idea is safe. It's not gone. It's just waiting for the right time. And when you finish what you're currently implementing, that's when you get to go back to the parking lot and run the matrix again to choose your new strategy. The businesses that scale are not the ones with the most ideas. They're the ones that are choosing the right idea and staying with it long enough to see what it can actually do. Discernment is what separates the business owners who are always busy from the ones who are actually building something sustainable and scalable. When you stop spreading your energy across 10 half-implemented, half-assed strategies and start directing it towards one thing at a time, the compound effect is a big deal. For a really long time, way too long in fact, I defined a lot of my life and my worth through my business. I put off real life things, investing in friendships, exploring hobbies, just being a person. I even postponed my wedding 3 times because I was too busy with business stuff. There was always something in the business that felt more pressing or more important. I really relied on my business to be a constant source of excitement, diversion, and fun. That's the buzz I got from a good launch or a post that took off or a new idea that was part of the deal, right? Here's what I know now. Even though being obsessed with my business was something I thought was necessary to grow a business as big as possible, that belief was sabotaging my ability to scale. Because when your business is your sole source of those things, of excitement, of joy, of diversion, every strategic decision becomes personal. A slow month used to feel like a personal failure. A post that didn't land felt like a referendum on my worth. I ended up needing the business to perform in order to feel good. It's definitely a form of emotional dependency, right? A very, very unhealthy one. I wouldn't recommend it. The shift for me was to embrace boring. Boring business means your business gets to be exactly what it is, a vehicle for your worth and your income without it needing to have any say in how you feel about your life. And since I've made the shift, everything related to business has honestly gotten a ton easier, like making strategy decisions without it feeling personal, looking at my numbers without feeling attacked by them, sticking with strategies even when they're not producing visible results yet because I'm not chasing some dopamine hit, having better boundaries with my email and social media because I don't need the feedback loop anymore, and separating my self-worth from my metric. I have such a rich life now outside of work, my family, my hobby, being a participating member of my local community. My whole identity isn't wrapped up anymore in being a business owner. That's just one small part. And my business, as a result, allows me to have the lifestyle I actually want. That's not to say that your business can't be a source of joy or purpose or pride. It absolutely can be and still is for me, but it shouldn't be the sole source of those things. When it is, the stakes are way too high and every decision gets distorted. Save the excitement for your life. Let your business be a steady, consistent, and yes, a little boring. That's actually a really, really good sign. This personality shift will help you scale because scaling requires you to keep going, even when it's not exciting. And if you've been relying on excitement as your fuel, you're going to run out of it. Boring business also removes much of the emotional noise. And without the noise, you can finally hear what your business actually needs and what it's trying to tell you. If discernment is about choosing the right strategies and boring is about detaching from the emotional noise, then devotion is what keeps you going when neither of those things is easy. Devotion, as I define it, is the commitment to the vision, even when you have no evidence yet that it's coming true. The truth is that when you're scaling, there's going to be stretches of time when you're doing everything right and nothing looks like it's working yet. The leads haven't spiked, the launch numbers aren't there. The content feels like it's maybe going into a void. I call this the nothing's happening middle. And it's not a sign that something is wrong. It's actually completely normal part of the process. But it's exactly where most people quit or pivot or take on a new strategy. And that is the exact problem. The easiest path that I've found into devotion is this: learning to celebrate more things. Most business owners are only tracking one thing: the outcome, the results, the revenue goal, the launch number, the follower count. And when that number isn't moving, it feels like nothing is working, right? But that's not actually true. There's so much more happening beneath the surface that never usually gets acknowledged. So a little practice that I've implemented that maybe you want to try too is, for any strategy you're implementing, identify 3 layers of metrics to track and celebrate. The first layer is your outcome metric, right? This is the obvious one. This is the goal. This is the launch revenue, the number of clients signed, the course enrollments. You already know this one. The second layer is your input metric. So these are the daily and weekly actions that you're taking in service of that strategy, in service of that goal. The number of conversations you're having, the touch points promoting your launch event, the content pieces that you've published, the follow-up emails sent. These are the things that are entirely within your control, and they deserve to be celebrated every single time you do them. The third layer are your glimmer metrics. So I define glimmers as the small pieces of evidence that the things are moving in the right direction before the big results show up. They're like leading indicators, but they can be much smaller and more personal too. So let me give you an example. So let's say you have a launch coming up and your outcome metric is your revenue and enrollment goal, right? Your input metrics are the things like how many conversations you're having every day, how many touch points you're putting out to promote the launch event. And your glimmer metrics, those are the page views ticking up, the registration numbers climbing, the DM from someone saying that they're so excited for this, the person who's been on your list for 2 years finally clicking through, positive feedback, warm signals, people leaning in. None of these things are like necessarily the goal, but all of them are evidence, right? And when you start celebrating evidence instead of just outcomes, devotion becomes a lot easier to sustain. So this personality shift will help you scale, because scaling is not a moment, right? It's a stretch of unglamorous, repetitive, unsexy work that eventually tips into momentum. And devotion is what keeps you in the game long enough for that tipping point to actually arrive and get there. And the people who scale aren't always, like from my experience, the people who scale aren't always the most talented, the most smart, or the most strategic. They're the ones who kept going during that middle, who celebrated the rep, to use a cliche, instead of waiting for the result, and trusted the process even before the process gave them anything to celebrate really at all. The shift is from "I'll believe this is working once I see the results" to "I believe this is working because I'm doing the right things consistently." Reminder number 1 is that these 3 shifts reinforce each other. Discernment gives you fewer things to stay devoted to. Boring business removes the emotional noise that makes devotion harder. And devotion makes discernment easier because you're not constantly looking for something new to chase. business. They're not three separate practices. They're an integrated way of operating. Reminder number 2 is that this isn't about lowering your ambition. None of this is about dreaming smaller. If anything, I want you to dream bigger, because here's what I've seen over and over and over and over again is that the business owners who embrace discernment, who let their business be boring and stay devoted to the process, they're building bigger, more sustainable businesses than the ones who are chasing every high and burning themselves out along the way. The lifestyle that grounds you isn't a ceiling on your ambition. It's actually the foundation that makes the big vision possible. You can absolutely have both. Reminder number 3 is you're going to oscillate. So there will be seasons when you drift back into strategy chasing, or when you need the business to perform emotionally, or when devotion feels impossible. That's human, right? The goal isn't to be perfect on these shifts. The goal is to notice when you've drifted and come back to center a little quicker each time. And until these shifts become second nature, you're going to have to be intentional about them. One of the most effective ways I've found to integrate these is to journal on these 3 questions at the start. Usually I recommend the start, but you can also do it at the end of your workday, right? And you can also do this like with a Claude project, right? And just talk to it in AI, however you want to do this. But the 3 questions is what is the one strategy I'm implementing right now? And is everything else in a parking lot? Number 2 is, where am I currently looking for excitement or validation from my business? And is that getting in the way of clear decisions? And number 3, what is the one glimmer or input metric that deserves to be celebrated? One question for each shift, less than 5 minutes. And over time, these stop being questions that you have to ask yourself and starts becoming the way you just naturally relate to your business. Knowing about these 3 shifts and actually embodying them are 2 very different things. And one of the places where I see the biggest gap is in the discernment piece specifically, because when you're inside your own business, it is really, really hard to evaluate your ideas objectively. You're way too close to it. The thing that sounds exciting right now might be exactly the wrong move for where you are. And the thing that feels boring and unsexy might be the highest leverage thing you can be doing. The most valuable thing about working together inside of your signature scaling system is we don't just build strategy. We look at every single decision through the lens of your lifestyle factors, your current capacity, and your revenue goals, so you can stop introducing the wrong things, the wrong strategies at the wrong time, and start compounding on the right things. So if you are completely tired of feeling like you're doing everything and not getting the traction you want, let's talk. Book a free strategy call. I'll pop the link in the description. Scaling doesn't require a bigger personality. It doesn't require more effort or more noise or more excitement. It actually requires something a heck of a lot more grounded than that. It requires the discernment to choose wisely and focus fully, the maturity to let your business be steady and a little boring, and the devotion to keep going even in that stretch of time when no results are visible yet, because that stretch is where all of the real building and momentum happens. If you've enjoyed this episode, let me know below, and I'll see you next week.